there, everybody. Long time no chat. I haven't uploaded an actual video to my channel in so long. And thank you to all you guys who are new subscribers who've been following the shorts, who've been following us on Instagram, those of you who I've helped tune your cars. A couple of you still waiting. We're still working on some tune files. Don't worry, guys. I'm building some tables and all that fun stuff, as well as, continuing on normal life here. This right here is our 09 Camry, running like a champ. She's all finished up. We're gonna go ahead and send this thing away, send it back to the owner, finally. It was here for quite a while, but it all went back together very quickly once we got the parts and stuff all in. Running like a top. She had a really bad blown head gasket and some other issues, but we replaced all the timing components and all that fun. Anyways, back to the stuff that we really care about, the GSX. This thing is packed full of tools right now, and that's all right. We're gonna leave all those in there. The main thing is we haven't been able to drive this car in about 7 weeks now, I think. It's been a hot minute just sitting here, and I've been trying to source some parts. So basically, I cracked the rear subframe in this thing, and I found that the differential bushings were pushed out the back of the subframe, and I had to try to find one. Now, I don't know about you, but searching around and trying to find parts for cars that are 20, 30 years old, it becomes quite difficult. Those of you guys who rebuild American muscle cars or classics, I definitely get the struggle. It's real. But down here on the working bench, we have ourselves a 1998 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX rear subframe. A couple of parts on it that have to come off. We finally got it. Shout out to my buddy Ray. He's the guy that drives that red Nissan 240 with the SR20 swap, that beautiful car show status vehicle. It's nice and clean. He drove all the way out to a friend's house who he knows, who's in the DSM scene, who had one sitting there for sale, and he nabbed this thing up for me for pretty cheap. So huge thanks to you. You were the man, Ray. Anyways, guys, we're gonna start the adventure. We have to take this thing and clean it all off. It's got surface rust on it. It doesn't have like any big serious rust anywhere, but these ears where the control arms mount, on mine, one of them cracked basically completely off, and the diff bushings pushed out this direction. So they're really bad. There's rust everywhere on it. It's not in very good shape at all. But we have this one sitting here on the healing bench. We're gonna go through this thing. I'm gonna grab some tools and we're gonna start this adventure. So first step is gonna be going through and pulling off all the additional hardware that's on here. I believe this is a brake line mount. We have a lot of stuff to take off. All right, guys, let's get after this project. So what I've got here is a couple of basic things we're gonna need. I'm gonna use some PB Blaster Max parts cleaner, just because you never know when you're not gonna need parts cleaner. We got ourselves a little power ratchet. You can just use some hand tools. I've got some regular wrenches and stuff, a basic socket set, and a 1/2-inch drive socket set to take out that big bolt right there. But what I'm gonna do is go over this and get anything that's left on here off. This is pretty bare already, but I'm gonna pull off these bolts here. I'm gonna try to get this mount off the back here and just get this control arm out of the way. It's, still in there, but not by much. I'm gonna try to knock all this stuff clean, and then we're gonna go around and start knocking off some of the scale and the rust. We're gonna lay some plastic down probably and use that wooden crate that shipped one of the engines that we replaced for the, 2012 Ford Focus motor that we swapped. I kept that just because I didn't know if I'd need it, and now it's gonna be a little stand. We'll lay a plastic sheet down, put the wood on top of it, and set the subframe on that so we can start cleaning it on the floor, because I don't wanna ruin my bench with all this stuff. Got our subframe pulled down to just the bushings and stuff and all that. That last control arm, I got her out. She's right here. Not cool. Did not want to come out. Basically, the rod on the inside here holding this bolt through, it just didn't want to budge. It was pretty seized up and pretty rusty in there. You can see that. But I cut it off. I'm gonna have another one on the car. If not, I'll just buy a big bolt. The control arm is gonna go in the bin. I've got this thing sitting on some plastic, and now we're gonna bust out some other stuff that I got here. Let me grab it real quick. This is probably gonna be step 2, but step 1, we're gonna hit it with a wire wheel and go through and get all the loose stuff off of it and clean up as much of the grease as we can. It's all gonna land on this, hopefully land on this plastic tarp. Then we're gonna put this all over all the surface rust. This dissolves paint, but it also dissolves rust very, very well. It takes a half an hour, it says, but the longer you leave it, the better it works, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go around the bushings, clean as much of the loose surface stuff off with just a drill and a wire brush, and maybe a brass or steel bristle brush also. Alright boys, I pulled about a pound of dirt over there in that little pile off of this thing, swept it all off. Shouldn't have put it on the plastic before I sprayed, or before I scraped it all off, but got a lot of the loose crap off. And now we're gonna go over this whole thing with that Rust-Oleum stuff, this gel. I'm gonna spray it on, I'm gonna leave it, I'm gonna go to the gym for a couple hours, come back, and hopefully the majority of the stuff will be dissolved off. Go to the gym for a couple hours and get my pump on. Winter months are coming up on us, and we, I guess, started working out, and I'm actually really excited about that. And I gotta tell you guys, I've only gone about 9 times now. We go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to our local Planet Fitness. I'm turning 35 in January, and I've never gone to the gym. Back in my high school days, I would go. Now that I'm going, it's great. You feel completely way better after you go to the gym and come home, and I'm not sore or anything. I've been working out pretty hard, but yeah, you know, it's good for you. So anyways, guys, this has been on here for about 3 hours, and you can see all the spots where it's just paint was rusty. There's still some surface rust on some of these spots where it didn't take all of it off, but like along the edges here, it's all clearing up. There's a little bit right there, and this stuff works so freaking good. It actually left a lot of the paint on here. It looks like the factory coating on it, but all these seams where they welded, it's chewed through so much of it. I'm pretty sure you can see it. Here, let me turn you on the other side so you can get out of that weird light. There, you can see surface rust, and then you can see the spots where it is completely gone. Basically, when you spray this Rust-Oleum stuff on there, this gel, I spread it around with a little tiny broom, a little dustpan broom. Worked out great. It will sit, and it will start to turn like a white foamy color, and it will just convert the rust out. Fantastic stuff. Just don't use it on a painted part of your car. If you have something like body panels of your car that you're not planning on painting, just be careful you don't get it on anything. If you get it on your clear coat and all that, it actually does leave a stain. So anyways, the worst parts on this were the pinch welds all the way around and where these mounts go. And as you can see, most of it's all chewed up. I was pretty liberal with my application of the stuff. I'm still gonna do another coat real fast with it, flip it over to the other side, show you what the other side looks like. This is the top side that bolts to the car. All the important stuff's down below. There's a few spots that I didn't get, like right here you can see it's still dry. So I'm gonna go back through and hit it one more time. We'll give it its half an hour. Then I'm probably gonna take this whole thing outside and blast it off with my garden hose. And then we're gonna take out our air tools and our zip discs and all that fun stuff. I picked up one of these little guns over here. So I bought one of these pressure regulators because when I was using my 60-gallon Ingersoll Rand tank with these hand tools here that I got, these small pneumatic tools, they were running at 90 psi or whatever, 125 psi, the SCFM setting on it, and it was just running the tank all the time. And it's such a little tool too. So what I did was I got a male and a female fitting 1/4-inch MPT, put a little pressure regulator on the side of it, and I run all these right around 75 to 80 psi, and that gives you a little bit more time between the tank turning on to recharge. So I definitely would recommend that to you guys, especially if you're using a small tank. You can get this thing spinning with like 55 psi. As long as you're not pushing really hard down on the head, jamming it into your part, it'll keep rolling. I just flipped this thing over, and this stuff is amazing. This Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver Gel. It's friggin' amazing. Take a look at this thing. I'd say 85 to 90% of the surface rust that was on this has started to already get dissolved. It's almost all black. The only spots that still have some rust are around the mounts where the welds are. And right up there's a little bit. This whole base in here is all cleaned up. This ear has a little bit, but now I'm just going back through with a small wire brush, adding some more gel to it, giving it the scrub down treatment manually, and we're gonna let it sit. Guys, it's a couple of days later. Last night I was out here working on this stuff, and I put my last coat of the rest of that rust remover on here, and as you can see, all of it is completely gone. All the little spots. It's still smeared all over this, but all that's left is clean metal and paint. I'm gonna flip it over in a second, but the edges down here on the pinch welds where there was surface rust is all gone. There's a little tiny bit in some seams. I'm gonna hit that with a wire brush and clean it up the rest of the way. This stuff sat on here for about 12 hours. It says to leave it on for 30 minutes. Obviously, the longer you leave it, the better it'll look. And again, it is Rust-Oleum Rust Dissolver. This stuff is absolutely freaking amazing. I love it. The gel. So, I'm gonna stick this over here. I got this nice little drain because this used to be a drive-in lower garage beneath the house. This wall right here didn't exist. You drive in and you park your car up behind me here, and it has this nice little floor drain. So I'm gonna run the hose down right here and run the water, spray it off right here, and let it run right down that floor drain. And so boys, I've been down here working on this for quite a while now. I don't know how long, but quite a while. We're gonna call it quite a while. Might have been an hour, might have been 3 hours, who knows? But anyways, look at the inside of this thing. The factory paint still looks good on the inside here. I've got all the grease out of this thing, and that stuff, that Rust-Oleum stuff, I know I've said it 10 times now. Took all the rust out of this thing. See shiny, nice metal. But anyways, now what I want to do is I want to take my welder, and you can see right here on this seam they welded this little stretch here, left the end, did not weld the front half. So I'm just going to go through this thing and weld the extra front part here and then finish it out at the end. We're going to go through here, we're going to re-weld these seams, we're going to make these look nice and clean them off, hit this little area right here, fill in that little space right here at the top that they left from the factory, and just overall we're just going to try to strengthen all this random bent metal and hopefully make this thing a little bit more sturdier than just its original quality. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. I talk a lot. Let's stop talking. Let's get after this. Boys, it's been a few days since I've been down here. Had to do a lot of work on this thing so far. I've rust removed so much rust, all the surface rust I could. Went around, re-welded all these little joints that were missing welds and filled in these little corners and stuff, and tried to just re-strengthen any spot where I felt like it could crack, bend, or break. And now I'm gonna go back over this whole thing. There's more on the other side, but now I'm gonna go against this thing right here. I got a lot of the paint and the surface crap cleaned off of here. I'm trying to get as much of this paint pulled off as I can. It's gonna take a little while, but I'm gonna use my grinder right here, and probably the wire brush is sitting right there on the back of my pneumatic tool, and all this paint is like flaking off and all this dusty stuff. I want to get as much of it off and get a nice surface that some rust converting primer can stick to. Spent a lot of time down here working on this. I've gotten a lot of the loose paint and all the crap off of it, and cleaned off a bunch of the welds that are on it. Top side looks fine, bottom side basically all bare metal again. There's a couple little spots here and there, but I'm gonna hit this thing with some rust converter primer, and it's a high build rust converter, I guess. So I'm gonna throw a coat of the gray on here, and then once that's set up, I'm gonna hit the whole thing with black. I've laid some of that rust converter primer on, and then I ran out after I did the spots that had a little tiny bit of surface rust. So I'm using engine enamel primer, this VHT stuff. I have a bunch of this left over from a couple of projects ago. I've got a coat basically done on this thing. I just gotta flip it upside down, do the other areas that are down on the floor that I can't reach. But in the meantime, while this is drying, this stuff, if you use this VHT stuff, it dries so fast, it's crazy. We have this brace that goes on, I believe, the passenger side of the subframe, bolts on. We have our rear mount here for our differential mount to the body, our brake line clips, our bolts, and this thing's pretty well coated with some grease and some scum and all that crap. So what I'm going to do is go clean this stuff off in the sink with some Dawn dish soap and brake parts cleaner here, and I'll be right back. I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to use to clean these off and make them minty. Alright, so well, that thing over here, she's drying. Now I can flip her for the old 180. Anyways, while that's drying, I'm going to come over here. I just scrubbed the stuff off in my sink with a little bit of Dawn soap, brake cleaner, and a wire brush. This is the diff mount. These parts look like crap, and I don't want to paint over them. So we're going to go ahead and bring those over here, and we're going to throw them into our 50-gallon drum that we turn into a sandblast cabinet. This thing has gloves. It has air filter pressure regulator. It's hooked up to our Ingersoll Rand 230 volt, I believe, something like that. 60-gallon air compressor that we picked up used, and I have a Home Depot bucket head vacuum hooked up to the side of it. Inside of it is some 70 grit glass bead. I built a sight window into it here. It's a little hazy. I gotta wipe the inside of this thing off, but once it's all cleaned out, there you go. You can see in there. This glass piece is just adhesived in here so I can knock it back out. It's plexi. When it gets really fogged up, I just cut a new piece, pop this one out, put another one in. Yeah, I'm gonna clean all this stuff off. Is dry on that, all the primer. It's the next day again. And down here we have our little clips, freshly painted, both sides looking real nice. Well, basically brand new again. The big bolt looks great. This I really like using the engine enamel primer, the VHT stuff, because when it dries, it doesn't feel like paint. Like sometimes paint feels like that satin finish, that soft finish. And primers especially, even if you have like a regular primer, the sandable filler primer stuff definitely has a texture to it. This stuff is like super smooth. It feels nice. I could have powder coated this stuff, mind you, but that would take a little bit of time, and I just wanted to get something on them. This is all going to get undercoated. Big washer, looks great. The nut came out looking new. The other bolts look great. So also this, I wish I had seen those markings. It looks like somebody tried to jack the car up at one point that this was installed on. I have another one. It was kind of masked by the scum that was on here. This one's pretty beat up. I may take the other one off the car that's on it now and swap it out. I'm not sure how much of a bend this is supposed to have in it. Something tells me it's not supposed to be that bent. The mount is all done. It's all painted up, well, primed up I should say. Looking nice and clean compared to what it was. Surface rust is all gone. When you sandblast stuff, it comes out looking brand new. Anyways, I wanted to share this stuff with you. I ordered some parts from Volk Metalcraft, and they send you a nice sticker and a DSM Tuners sticker, which is fantastic. These guys are awesome. If you haven't heard of or seen Volk Metalcraft, go check them out online. VolkMetalcraft.com, I believe. They make control arms, they make entire rear subframes, they make tons of stuff, and it's all very high quality, like highest quality metalwork that these guys do. They also CNC machine keys right here, 2G DSM solid differential bushings. So I was gonna go Torque Solutions with these rear subframe bushings that are on the subframe here, but these are in such good shape still, I don't want to mess with them. I don't want to push these out. The only ones that are really bad on my car are the diff ones. The other bushings are okay. The control arm mount point broke on the subframe, but the bushings look fine. Now, I know what you're gonna say, do it all now, don't wait. Well, the Torque Solutions ones are the only ones that I could find, and to install those, you have to basically burn this rubber off and get that steel insert out of the center. It's a spacer, and then there's another washer that's on the car that you have to take and burn out of the top cap of that. Alright, now I could do that. I could spend some time with a wire wheel and a torch and cook the rubber off the metal and save the metal pieces, or we can get the car back on the road, not wait for shipping. And while I'm waiting, in the meantime, I can source some of the POM bushings that I wanted originally. There's a couple of websites that still have them for sale, and they're basically a complete kit. They come with the top washer, they come with a POM, it's a poly, it's like a poly rubber, and it's a little stiffer than this rubber, and it already has a metal sleeve pressed into it, an aluminum sleeve, I believe. They're just out of stock right now, and I've been waiting for a few weeks to get them, and every time I've called back to check on them, they're just not there. So in the interest of saving some time and getting this car back on the road, we'll swap those out later if we ever have to drop the subframe again or whatever. I really don't want to have to, but you know, if I see that these bushings go bad prematurely, or they look like they're really worn out once they go in the car, we'll swap them. We'll drop this stuff back out because it's all going to be fresh, and we're going to do something else that's going to give us a little bit more access to the subframe area. But for right now, these right here, they give you 3 of these solid differential bushings. So one goes in here, the other 2, you get one on each side, right here and right here. And you can see these ones are totally ruined also, just like the ones in the car currently. So I have to try to get this out of here. So this may be a pain in the butt, and this is why I didn't paint this thing, finish paint it yet, because it's gonna have to go in the vise probably. Might have to heat it up. I don't know, it could be tough, but you take one of these bad boys. I'm gonna measure these out in a second. I think all 3 of these are exactly the same size, and one gets pressed in here right into the mount. The other 2 go into those holes right there where those stock bushings are, and then you'll basically stiffen up your rear subframe and the differential mount point so much that you won't have to worry about it tweaking or twisting like mine is. Pushing the bushings out the back, no vibrating. It's not gonna, you know, squish the rubber and push it out the back of the subframe again. These will lock it down real good and tight. You won't have to worry about your diff bushing or your rear differential itself wearing out prematurely, drive shaft flex, any of that stuff. So this is the hard part, getting the old ones out to put the new ones in. And this bushing right here, we got to get this out. It's actually in really good shape still, but it's coming out. Also, I just checked all 3 of these from Volk. All 3 of them are the same size, so there's not a special one that goes in the diff mount or special ones that go in these holes. You can just pick one and go with it. So I figured I'd say that first. I'm gonna take my drill. I'm gonna take some drill bits here, and I'm sure if I had a press, I could press this thing out no problem. I don't have a socket that big. That's probably bigger than a 32mm socket. I mean, the biggest one that I have in my set is for axle nuts. And that right there is an axle nut. And with the flange, it's still only hitting the rubber. If you look close on it here, you can see it just barely gives me enough space to be just on the rubber here. This whole race is what's going to come out too, so you can actually see how much of this part you're going to want to take out when you place the new one over top of it. It's going to fit perfectly in there all the way around, and that's with that metal race gone. Same can be said with these. I'm going to hold this up. There's 2 lips here. The outer lip is the one that's welded to the frame here, and the inner lip is the race of the bushing. So, I'm just gonna go ahead, grab a drill bit. I'm gonna punch holes all the way around through this rubber, take some of the tension off the outside edge of this. Probably gonna heat it up a little bit with a torch, and then just get a punch and start working my way around it with my hammer here. Just knock it out if I can. Hopefully I can push it out one direction. That was a pain. So doing the drill knocks out the center section here, and there's a bunch of metal in the middle of this. So instead of drilling this out forever, threw it off to the side. First I grabbed one of these carbide burrs and I tried to go for one of these to get through this bearing shell, and it didn't really work. So the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to grab your Sawzall, cut it. You can see I cut it here. I got most of the way through on this side here. See a little split where my finger is. And I stopped because I didn't pay enough attention to it, and I actually nicked the case here on this side. You can see there's a little line right there. Don't worry though, this is steel, so I just welded it up and then smoothed it back out. So I used my carbide burrs to reshape it. Anyways, you can still see the factory lines from the machine work on the inside of this. It still looks fine. There's that little line that I just added to it and then filled. I just filled the top of it in up here. I didn't want to have a place where it could crack, so we got the old ones out. This thing still looks nice and round. I'm gonna try to, oh yeah, one other thing. When you're doing this, you'll see there's two sides to this thing. This side is flush on the edge here. You can see there's no lip really, it's nice and smooth. This side has a concave edge. This is the side you're gonna wanna press your bearing in from. We're gonna lay it like that in our vise, and then we're gonna pick up a little bushing here. We're gonna line it up in the hole, and then we're gonna tap it in with a hammer. We're gonna put a piece of 2x4 over the top of this so we don't hurt the face of this or mar up the hole. So this is gonna get mounted. Bearings, or bushing rather, is gonna go in here with a little bit of lube on the outside. We're gonna tap it in 2x4 and the big hammer. Okay boys, so I have to be honest here. These were the hardest things to get in here. Well, this was the hardest thing to get in here. I could not get this thing to press in past this point. It looks like it's pretty much straight if you look at it across the backside here. I just sanded the backside of it smooth because I did get a little mad and beat the hell out of it with a hammer. But it's in at the top, and you can see this is kind of popped out on this side here, and it's closer to flush on this side here. I'd say that thing's in pretty straight, and I smoothed out the sides here and here because, like I said, I beat it with a hammer a little bit. There's a little lip there. I'm not worried about it. It looks like it's centered. There's an equal amount sticking out here and here. I'm gonna call that good enough because that was a bear, and I'm not kidding. That was so tight. If I had a hydraulic press, I bet you that would have been so much easier, but I was down here on the floor with the 2x4, beating it on the 2x4 on the floor, and it didn't want to go in. So my advice to you would be to clean this thing out, the outer area here, as good as you can, and maybe even sand it smooth on the inside where those little rings were from the factory. Maybe sand those out a little bit. Get some 240 or 280 or whatever, go around the inside of it, sand those grooves out, smooth it down with some 400, clean it out real smooth, then press that in. Obviously you want it to be tight still. You don't want to sand it down until there's nothing there, but I'll tell you what, you're not getting that back out of there. That thing, that was a bear. But that one's in. I'm gonna go ahead, I saved some paint, so I'm gonna repaint this whole thing. I'm gonna smooth these grooves out right here so it doesn't look terrible. Same with those little marks right there. But I'm gonna paint it up again, stick it over to the side someplace, and then we're gonna work on taking out the two in the back of the subframe right there and right there. There's rubber, one race, and then the mount point. So yeah, I'm gonna try to knock this out and cut this out and then just tap these out with a hammer and a punch. Hopefully they come out easy because that was really tough, and I didn't think it was gonna be that tough, but let's get after it. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. This is the first bushing that's missing right there, and if you're very careful with your Sawzall, you can see I barely cut through. I don't know if I even cut through all this. I cut through most of it. There was a tiny little tiny bit of the race that did not get fully penetrated through by the Sawzall blade, and that gave me enough to knock this bushing out, which is great. Number two, I wanted to show you. If you look along the edge here, you can see rust and a little space all the way around here. So I carefully used my Sawzall, and this has got the fat blade on it. So I angled it into this hole because it's, you know, fatter than the hole itself. I cut down into it. Once I got down into it, I pointed it straight through it and then made a nice straight cut down. And when I did that, can't really see it now, but you can actually see once you cut this, that there is a little space where the edge of the race is to the mount point, and I don't know, it doesn't show up right here very well, but you can see that little split right there. You can actually see straight through it once you get it cut. So this I didn't hurt. I put a tiny scratch right here in the edge of this mount point, as well as this one right here. That's all right, I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna go back through here with a wire wheel, clean this out, and try to make this look as good as I can, and probably chamfer the edge a little bit more with my carbide burrs, just so when I put the new one in, it's easier. Because again, that one sucked. I don't want these ones to suck, so I'm gonna show you this live real fast. Let me throw you guys on the tripod how easy this is to knock this thing out. I'm using my big hammer, and I'm using a punch with a flat end, and this works great. You line it up on the lip, and you can actually catch it with the edge of this punch, and you just give it a couple of smacks. You can see it's already dropped down in there pretty far. I can fit my fingertip in there, so you can actually just hit the rubber from this point on. There you go. She's out, and you can see right here, it didn't actually get cut all the way through either. It got cut just enough so that it could close and relieve the clamping force on one side, and that kind of allows you to push it out the bottom side here. Okay, so this is a lot harder than I thought it would be to get these in here. This one was a breeze. This one's the one that's level-ish for the most part. This has that additional cone on the side of it here. This was tough to get in here, and I beat the hell out of it with a hammer again. I didn't really kill it or hurt it too bad. I did slide off and nick the edge, but it's fine. It all went in there and seated. This one, perfect, easy, no big deal. This one, again, was real tough. I beat it with my hammer right here. And then what I did was I went to Harbor Freight and I bought myself a medium-duty air hammer and some chisel tips. Here's the kicker. You can buy the medium-duty gun, this right here, for $14.99, I think. And it hits pretty freaking hard. Comes with one of these tips, and then you can buy, for $69.99, I think it is, you can buy the hammer tip. It's got that flush end on it instead of having a point or a chisel or anything. So I took and bought a $6.99 pack and just lopped off the end of the bit, made it nice and flat. Press this thing up on here, because it's aluminum, you gotta be careful you don't mushroom it. So I hit it in the center, just quick little blips, little louder than hell. So earplugs for sure, but I blopped it on each side until it was nice and seated, and now they're both in there pretty well. I don't think it has to move anywhere more than where it's at, so I'm just gonna call that good enough. If I have to move them in just a little bit more, I can definitely do that still. Tap on them a bit with a hammer. The other thing that I'm gonna do, the bolts for these fit perfectly through the center. Like, they're real snug, so that's perfect. I'm gonna chamfer these edges just a touch, and just to help it become a little easier for myself when I go to slide those in underneath the car and mount the diff. I have an extra jack, so that shouldn't be too big of a deal, but we're finally done putting these bushings in here. We have all three of these done. I'm gonna hit these bushings with some primer, just like this one here, and make everything look nice before I undercoat it. So let's get after it. I am going to start undercoating. So a couple of things you gotta watch out for is your bolt holes. I plugged them all with tape, the mounting points where bolts slide through, the adjustments for the cammed bolt for the control arm here, and there's also one inside of here, so I'm going to tape those in just a second. But all the mount points are good. I'm going to thread chase everything that's got primer on it anyways, but I've got some plastic set up here. I've got my exhaust fans turned on. I'm going to hit this thing with a coat of just Duralast brand undercoating, or whatever it is. I think it's Duralast undercoating, so I'm going to use that. I got it soaking in a hot water bath right now. I'm going to shake the crap out of it, spray it on, and we're going to flip it over once it's set up, do the other side, and we have a finished subframe, boys. Alright, boys, so if you watched that last clip, you saw me going over this stuff with undercoat, and I undercoated this whole thing. Well, the whole top side. I didn't quite get to the bottom side. So here's what happened. First off, I laid down some VHT primer, and I used this Duplicolor rubberized undercoat. It says paintable, rubberized, resists rust. Sorry, I'm a little shaky anyways. Just got back from the gym. But here's how it went. I put the paint down on this stuff, and I let it sit for about 3 hours. Went and took care of some stuff. I came back 3 hours later, and I went to move it, and none of it had dried or set up or anything. So I was like, this is crazy. This stuff should dry. Like, I've used that stuff before, and I was like, maybe I got a bad can. So I grabbed the other can, shook it up, sprayed it down, and after another 45 minutes on a test area, it was still as wet as it was from the time that I sprayed it. So I'm gonna advise not using the Duplicolor undercoating on this, and this is what I'm left with. Had a beautiful, freshly primed surface, and I mean, the only spot that this stuff stuck to is right here, and like 2 other light spots. I don't know if I did something wrong here, but there was nothing on it but primer. And I mean, I cleaned it off, I wiped it down with a cloth, got it all nice, blew it off with my air gun, and it was ready. I don't know. Maybe that primer, maybe the surface was too smooth after the primer. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with it, but I sprayed it on another piece of plastic just to see, and it didn't dry to the plastic either. It's been, what, 5 hours since I did that now? So, I don't know, guys. It dried lightly on this plastic down here where I tested, but, I mean, that's just overspray hitting it. Maybe I applied it too thick, but in the interest of transparency and telling you guys the truth, don't use the undercoat unless you guys have used this and you're comfortable using this brand. But I had a really bad time with it. So instead of going over and repriming everything, I took this thing over to my floor drain and blasted it off with a garden hose, put it in front of a fan for a couple hours more, and just let it air dry. I just went through and air hosed it again. There's no more water left on it, but I'm gonna go ahead and use Rust-Oleum Stops Rust Gloss Protective Enamel, superior coverage and durability in black gloss. So this is what I'm gonna use. This is a Rust-Oleum product. I've used probably 100 of these cans in the last couple years on random parts that I've painted for people before I started powder coating stuff in my little oven over here, which you guys will learn about later. So I'm gonna go over this thing again, and hopefully this time when I lay a nice coat of this Rust-Oleum gloss black enamel, it will cover up the majority of everything. I was gonna do a wrinkle black, but I don't know. I was worried that the wrinkle would chip away easy also, so we're just gonna use this stuff. I'm not gonna scrub this down anymore. I'm not gonna sand it out anymore. I just wanna get some coverage on it and get it ready to install. So hopefully it looks all right once all the black is on there. So yeah, I'm gonna stick you guys off to the side, and we're gonna try this one more time. That's it. We finished this thing up. It took quite a while, especially because the rubberized undercoating stuff didn't want to dry or set up or stick, and I have no idea why. I don't know. Maybe the prep was too wet or fresh or smooth, or maybe it doesn't like to adhere to the UH or VHT stuff. I'm really not sure, guys, but this thing, she's money. I'm happy with it. Everything's covered up. No more empty places for bare metal to get hit and rust. No water's going to get into anything and hurt it. And there's no structural issues with this thing. Now the only thing I have left to do is thread chase these holes, and then we're gonna slap this thing in the car. For part 2, I'm gonna show you guys how to remove your rear subframe and replace it with this. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Some awesome news, we finally finished our new Spotify merch store. So if you guys remember beforehand, we were using today's projectguide.com. That URL and domain name was facilitated through Teespring, and unfortunately for me, I don't know why, a few months back, Teespring deleted the domain, and I've been trying to get it reinstated for a while. So if you guys have been trying to buy any of the merch stuff and you haven't been able to get to the site or access the domain, that's why. I'm kind of frustrated with that. Those guys said they were going to fix it multiple times, and they never did, so I jumped over to Shopify. So we now have a new URL, new designs, new merch, new t-shirts. We're going to throw a whole bunch of stuff on there. Every week I'm going to have something new uploaded on there. So if you guys want to see some more DSM content or some cool merch, anything to further support the channel, make sure you check it out. It's at tpgdsm.com. So that's our initials, today's project guide, tpgdsm.com. And you can pick up shirts. We're going to have some hats. We're going to have bags. We're going to have sweatpants, hoodies, lots of cool stuff. So it's all going to be Mitsubishi Eclipse, Evo, Lancer. We're gonna have some Galant stuff. We're gonna have GSTs, GSX. What else? There's just gonna be a lot of Mitsubishi stuff and some other tuner stuff. There's gonna be some turbo shirts, a bunch of cool things on there. So make sure you check that out and pick up something from there if you want to further support the channel, or just grab a nice t-shirt and rep your car. If you have a GSX and you want to have a GSX hoodie, go pick one up. So make sure you check out tpgdsm.com. There'll be a link in the description. Go over there and check it out. We only have a few things on there right now, but we're going to be adding every single week. We're going to put new designs up, new merch, new hats, mugs, shirts, all sorts of stuff. But it's a brand new store, so we're going to keep laying in and adding as much as we can add as fast as we can. So each week I'm going to have a new drop, just adding some extra things in there, and come back every week or two and check it out. There'll be a bunch of new things on there. So we're actually working really hard. I have a good designer who's putting some of the graphics together for me, and we're going at it in a better way than we did beforehand. So hopefully you guys like this stuff, and those of you who have bought merch in the past, definitely appreciate it. You guys are the best. Anyways, I'm going to close this one out. It took quite a while to get here. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a long time, but now we're back. We're going to be knocking stuff out for the next few months and getting into some more projects. It's just this one needed to get done. I had something else planned that I really wanted to start this month, but unfortunately we had to push it back a month because the subframe cracked. But I guess that's how she goes sometimes, guys. Anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for following, subscribing, and liking the videos. Thanks for sharing the content and staying around for all this time. It's been a blast, and I cannot wait to get the next video out and get that car back on the road. I miss driving it so much. But you guys take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end. We'll see you next time.